the pelvic floor rises up, the sacrum opens, and the feeling is you're going to ride that all the way through the legs, so the legs don't get caught, and you're not getting caught in this hip joint. Again, floor of the pelvis, you initiate the exhale, and make the snake breath, and open here until you can feel that opening happening all the way through the knees. Beautiful. And then let the breath flow in and really feel supported. Like I can feel now your pelvis is opening, the baby, there is a certain settling down that's happening. So gravity is working for you, right? That's what we're looking for, is that sense of just gravity working for you, right? And it's easy to sit up, right? Because now the baby is like, you have this sort of weight anchoring you. Everything else is just can float because of it, right? This is so unusual. Most pregnant women, like they don't, there's no room for the baby. There's no, it's like it's a struggle to try. But you have a very different relationship because of what's happening in your breath. Okay. Right? So that feeling of openness, and like you're introducing the infinite to the baby, right? The baby to the infinite. And in the way that you open and kiss back, and then that feeling of that beautiful sense of embrace that happens on the exhalation. Let's try it. One more breath like that. And so opening, right through the knees, right through the lower legs, right through the feet, feeling the ground. So one of the ways you'll know you're feeling it is the sit bones widen a little bit, right? And you're much more planted on the sit bones, right? Both sit bones you can feel on the ground, and then you can start to feel the whole soft floor of doing sound breathing like that is beginning to open the perineum. So it's much less likely to be torn. Like if the perineum is tight and then you're pushing right against it, it's much more likely that it can tear, right? But if the like the birth that I was telling you about where we used the hands, when I was down here, was so amazing to watch, because the perineum had this capacity, and she, like you, is a long-term student of somatic learning, so she'd been doing the breathing for years. Her perineum looked just like an eye opening with every breath. It was just like, and you'd see the baby come. And I mean, there wasn't even, what do they call it? Those tracks. There was no pull in the tissue at all. It just opened for it. But it was so used to this kind of motion, right, from the breathing. And so you're going to just keep playing and letting the weight, that's all you need, is the weight of the baby against the movement of your breath, right, to open even more fully. And then let the wave go transfer all the way through to the top of the head, all the way through the legs. Yeah. I've seen it enough to know what a difference that can make. So every time you can think about it, I this beautiful embrace that you do, and also that ability to deliver to the baby to gravity. So you're not holding it up, but the ground is, right? Okay. So last time, don't get caught in the hip joints. Make sure that you can really feel, as soon as the perineum comes out, the sacrum anchors, it creates a wave through the spine and a wave through the leg. It's opening, the whole floor of the pelvis is opening against the ground. As you inhale, right, the pelvic floor opens. You can feel that, right? You can feel that. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is the best posture ever for you. Beautiful. Beautiful. Okay, no questions about this part, right?
Nope.
Okay. Okay. If you're in the bathtub, one thing that I might suggest, and the bathtub's lovely, for a lot of reasons. The ability to kind of relax the muscles and feel floaty, and of course, if you wind up, are you exploring the possibility of an underwater birth?
It's not really set up for that. I mean, they have a
Okay.
bathtub that you can do a lot of the but the actual birth,
Will be out.
I mean, that you could, I think, do it there, but it's not really equipped for that. Because
Okay.
it's a regular hospital, but it
Right.
has a bathtub that they'll support you in and be in there with you and do everything. But
If you're comfortable in the bathtub, they might be comfortable hanging there with you. And it doesn't
Right,
really,
yeah, they're
it's not
very-
a big deal one way or the other whether
Right.
the baby is born underwater. There is something nice about the warm fluid, because they're in
Right.
this warm fluid and
Fluid
now
all
they're
the
in
time,
this warm
right.
fluid, and it's just a nice,
Right.
sweet, gentle transition. And because there's
they're
no
not.
reason to do that, right, then the baby can take to their breathing rather than everybody kind of, are they going to breathe in time? Are they going to be, caught? Is there going to be mucus or, suctioning them? The sense of they can take all the time they want to become air breathers,
Mhm.
because they have this still connection. So there's no sense of pressure even in the room, right? So let's have you first here, and then
Facing which way?
I don't know, what would work for you, Andrew? Okay. So now we get to use the ground, and you might even want, let me grab this, a yoga mat. Wait, bring one with you.
Oh yeah, I have one. On
Because it just the difference, like you could feel now, the difference
Right.
between sliding on something and really feeling like you can plant yourself and root better through it. It can make a big difference. So, and I'm assuming it's going to be warm enough and you're not going to be cold, but not having like socks on will
right.
also make a big difference.
Yeah.
Because right now you want all the anchoring and ground you can get, right?
Okay.
And so this interaction with the earth is like a primordial feeling. Like, think of yourself much more like a tree that is aerating the soil with your roots. And so the more space that the earth is providing for you because you're receiving it is coming from how deeply you're making space in the earth from your presence there, right? So it's really feeling yourself like a convergence of rivers, you and the ground fluidly interpenetrating from one another, right?
Okay.
So that's the main thing that's going to happen. It's a little different here in sitting. Also, you're sitting forward, which is great, and but the birthing stool should allow you to do this too. Support that's coming through the sit bone directly and through the legs. So so you've got 4 points, just like a chair needs 4 points rather than 2 points for support. And now we're going to do the same elongation from this position. And first we'll play with just your arms resting down, exhaling. And you can sound on breath with a snake breath or with an open throated sound. Open. Feeling the perineum and then relaxing and feeling the weight of the baby fall down on the inhale, right? And on the exhale, just like the sacrum, the baby's actually going to also anchor down on the exhale because the sacrum is able to as the perineum comes up. So it's like you're opening the eye. The baby isn't lifting up, but it's that feeling like you're opening the space as the perineum's coming up. The sacrum, the baby's going to sit lower. And that's the feeling you want. So even on the inhale and on the exhale, you can have that feeling of the baby getting lower. Right?
Okay.
That's it. And letting the breath, really savoring it, really enjoying that inhale. It's like as fully as you can offer yourself to it, kind of. Yeah. And then again, that's lovely. Now you can do something from here, like let's say you can bring your arms up and you can put them around, let's see, the most comfortable. I'm thinking of Tim. Okay, let's see if I can support you. let's see if I support you this way and you just let the arms down, but that you use me a little bit for support. So you feel that extra little, like,
Yeah.
and if there's pain in the back, I'm going to give you, so Margaret, look at this. You know how when I've done visceral work, like on the table, sometimes I'll use this on someone's spine to create a little bit more pressure. So like if you're supporting, or Tim, you could have something like this helping to support her spine,
Okay.
right? And helping her have that experience of sort of hanging. It's a pleasurable sense. I'm tempted to hang this thing real quick. Hold on. Let's try this, because I think if you could find a place in the room, and you could ask the midwife, Andrew, let's see, can you stop for a second? To the ground with the rooting from the ceiling, really. How deep can you extend those roots? How much space can you feel come up through you? And then really paying attention at the end of the breath to gently open and receive. Wow. Long toning breaths, riding the waves, elongating the spine, embracing the baby, opening to the world, the baby. This sense that you have of when you're kissing back to the universe, it's like you're holding the baby in that kissing back and receiving again, and long tones, riding the waves, just having the feeling of like you're practicing in a way, being able to stay connected to your joy and interest, and stay connected to the wave of the elongation, because the wave of contraction really isn't any different. It's just somebody turns it on higher intensity and it comes. Do you know what I mean? It comes.
Right.
So it's like, and if you're not ready for it, it's like, ah,
Mm-hmm.
But if you're ready for it, it's like you're a surfer saying, wow, we got a great wave. Let's ride that one. You know what I mean? It's like you go on it. But the more you practice the riding of the waves before, the easier it is to get on that wave and feel, at ease when you're on the wave.
Right.
Because it's just an intenser wave. Right.
Okay.
I don't know, we can do one sound. Let me just make sure that your holdings feel good in case you want to use the arms in this position, which I think you might.
Mm-hmm.
And just making sure that you don't strain. You could have support here, but you're so open that you don't need it underneath the elbows.
Mm-hmm.
But if you gotten tight or strained or something, you could really pay attention to. So one playful way to think about this is, way that one way that I was thinking that you can think about somatic intelligence, right? I often think of it as self-3, and so if somatic intelligence is how you're sensing, knowing yourself, how the whole of life, you and the baby and the relationship to space and the ground and gravity and the stars and everything that are here, right? That life is sensing itself unfolding in this moment, right? In that kind of bubbling, bursting, blooming forth of consciousness here, now, right? Very different than how we've been conditioned to relate to ourselves, which is a much more outside-in thing. It's like you look to me kind of like an object. I'm in a mirror. I see myself looking like an object, and the assumption is that what's taking place here at no distance is basically similar to what I see at a distance, which is sort of relatively fixed, object-like. And so we act on our to try to get control over the problems the problem self or the problems of the body, like the body is an object and somehow we're acting upon it with our will, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that process I describe as self one being the one that's behaving, reacting, feeling, thinking, whatever, right? And self two being the part of you that is reacting to self one. Do you see what I'm saying? Like judging it, thinking about it, reflecting on it. And one of the things that my teacher often used to say is that the problem with this reflective self or seeing is that it's kind of like reading the book of your life one page at a time, except you're always behind. So it's like you see something and then you think, oh gosh, I shouldn't have done that. Well, next time I'm going to do it some other way. And so I ate poorly again today. Tomorrow I'm going to not eat any sugar, or whatever, and I'm going to use this will to try to manage the self, right? And even in birthing, of course, that can come up really easily, because instead of this self-3 intelligence, which is how life is sensing and reorganizing and renewing itself in this moment, meeting this moment, right, with the energy that it needs to meet this moment, instead what happens is that we're acting on ourselves, like we're trying to get ourselves to do something, and it's like we're working at it, we're pushing, we're doing, we're trying to control the breath, we're thinking about it, and all those things actually take you out of the capacity at the moment to reorganize out of what you're sensing that really renews you in that moment, taking all the energy that's available at that moment to bloom into what you need to bloom into. Because really, what is birth but shape-shifting your baby, right? And so to move from that intelligence is so important in that mode. So just even to recognize, is this like self two trying to act on doing something or bracing against something, or is this self one being re-traumatized, and feeling powerless and afraid, and self two trying to protect and take care of her? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes.
Or am I moving from a deeper intelligence, right? That like the cells of your body aren't waiting for your orders to know how to regenerate themselves, right? They're constantly shape-shifting and regenerating and turning into other things that they need in a given moment, because that's the capacity of that intelligence, right? If you have to wait for you to figure out and tell and act on your body, you're likely to make a mess of it. And unfortunately, the conditioning that, or the way of thinking that medical understanding comes from is that kind of object level awareness, like acting medicine treats the body, acts on the body, right? Also, our conditioning at school has been to basically try to, use self-control, ignore the needs and impulses, and just pay attention to what somebody's telling you. And Margaret, but when practitioners come in and they say, oh, well, let's monitor the baby, or let's give you another little exam, and suddenly you're become the good patient to them. And this intelligence doesn't need to not be available, but suddenly you notice that you're more in the position of relating to yourself also and talking about yourself in that object way, mm-hmm. right? Rather than inside yourself. And so as little monitoring as possible, as long as, you're comfortable, that you're feeling safe and secure, I would recommend saying you want the minimum, mm-hmm. right? Because you want to trust this intelligence.
Okay.
Right.
Did a big birth
in the room. are only people who are totally intimate with you, meaning that it almost should feel like nobody's there and you're completely supported. Like you're not interacting with them
Mm-hmm.
any more than you feel like you want to. They're not asking you how you're doing. They're not having conversations with you. They don't need even to be check in to make sure hands like Margaret was holding you, or grounding. You might want to be touched or held, but the less occupied you are in anything that's social in this context, the more free you're going to be to just become whatever you need to become in that moment, in that wave, right? And almost as if you're invisible. So you lose, because like, you ever be in a room full of mirrors and suddenly it's like you're playing up against the image of yourself? You can't help it in a way, because it sort of stutters you up to see yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when other people are there, there's almost a similar sense, sort of like you're seeing yourself through them, and in a funny way, in this situation, you almost don't want to see yourself at all. You don't want to be occupied with that image of yourself and how people are taking you in or feeling about you, or or feeling appreciated, or, oh, did I offend them when I screamed a minute ago? You almost want to feel like you're one body with several arms and legs, right? Okay. That quality of intimacy, like you're breathing together, there's nothing that you need to take care of for anybody else, right? Does that feel comfortable? Because that, I think, is how we tend to go more into the self one and self. Mm-hmm. So either the things that will trigger us is fear, which we talked about, could come up particularly during that kick-in of hormones and the transition, but also just the social activity of what's going on and being occupied at all with it is something really important to be able to know and feel into, and not just during the birth, but particularly after the birth. That the room is held, that you're feeling held, that the space is held, that nothing's rushed, nothing's pushed on you, nothing's pushed on the baby. And so partly your loved ones are sort of protectors of this intimate space, because this is about your bonding in this realm as two together, that is going to create a sense of security for your little one, that, this is, it's like a continuation of being held in the love and safety that she's felt all the time that she's been in your womb, right? And particularly until the suckling is happening well,